Street Fighter 6 1-year anniversary is today, as Street Fighter actually confirms it. And I was actually waiting for this day. I didn't know it was going to land on a Sunday, but the fact is this game is incredible. The fact that it already has a year gone through and what they're doing now, there's literally DreamHack massive tournament going on right now, and they are closing out this tournament. Now, last week at Combo Breaker, Tekken 8 closed it out, but I believe this time around Street Fighter 6 is doing it again. Unless it is Tekken 8, that'd be wild. That'd be great for the fighting game community, as Street Fighter 6 and Tekken 8 are by far some of the most impressive installments to date, especially bringing newer players on board, such as myself to Tekken 8. Now, when Street Fighter 6 released last year, it really did change my life. It changed everything. I was going through a bunch of shit and like somewhat of a depression, and I wasn't streaming as much because I started like a little bit right before COVID. Then COVID came around. I didn't really stream as much during COVID. Everybody knew that shit was just weird, the whole thing that happened throughout those times. Then Street Fighter 6, I was looking for a game where I could have progression, where I can invest some time in. But if anyone knows, you do know, especially newer players can really attest to this. When you first come across a fighting game, it is very daunting. The last fighting game I played, at least at a quote-unquote respectable level or even a higher level, was Mortal Kombat 9 back in 2011, which is the greatest Mortal Kombat of all time. No debate. But when you look back into fighting games, especially when you take that much time off, I mean, Street Fighter 6 came out in 2023, and so I was like, damn, it's been over a decade since I really played these fighting games. And so when I was looking into it, I was like, damn, like I don't know if I want to do like your typical just online, let me try to rank up, let me do all this, because it's hard to get back into that flow and stuff with fighting games. Because with fighting games, a majority of the time is legacy players, because fighting games, thank goodness, they last for a long time unless you change your mechanics heavily like Mortal Kombat 1 has, or Mortal Kombat has the last 4 years where the game's kind of just different. But if you're Street Fighter and Tekken, definitely, you know that they keep the same core mechanics, fundamentals of everything. They would try to maybe improve some things, or in some states freaking decline these aspects, which people don't like. But the core foundation and fundamentals of Street Fighter and Tekken for sure are the same. And it is daunting for newer people to try to play this game. So when Street Fighter 6 it released June 2nd, and I was like, man, I need a game where I want to play or invest my time. Progression, well, I'm looking at investing my time, it was fighting. And then I look at progression, I'm like, oh, hell yeah, like I can progress all the way through. And so I was like, man, but I don't know. I was still on the fence about it. I didn't want to just go straight ranked and just get bodied all day. And I didn't want to put in too much of the training hours just yet. I was looking for a way to ease myself into it. And voila, two things really helped me come to Street Fighter 6. And it could be really weird for people to stay. Again, I didn't play these fighting games for like over 10 years. And so I was like, okay, what can I do? And Street Fighter 6 wholeheartedly saved my life. It allowed me to start streaming again. It helped me start creating content again. And it was because of these two things. It was modern controls, and it was because of the World Tour. Most effectively, the World Tour, definitely. Modern controls just helped me start getting my feet wet into ranked mode again, like where I wanted to play against like harder people. But World Tour kept me streaming almost every day or every other day consistently for the next 3 months until or at least 2.5 months until Mortal Kombat 1 was actually announced, and I started building content for that and doing marathons on that on my stream. And so those 2.5 months were some of my best months ever with Street Fighter 6, and I can't thank this game enough. This game wholeheartedly changed my life. Well, the World Tour mode, it kind of slashed away a technical story, like a linear story, like the way Mortal Kombat has always done, but it still gave you a great story, progressions. It gave you like a GTA open world. So many people would come across my stream, but like, is this Grand Theft Auto, or what game is this? And I was always like, nah, it's Street Fighter, man. And because you run around freely. Now, you could tell it's more of like a beta format. Like Street Fighter 6 put a lot of heart and soul into the World Tour, but you can tell they didn't overextend and beyond themselves, because one, it's always a fighting game, of course, but two, they probably didn't know like what was the reception of this gonna be, because you can see some things are kind of I wouldn't say lazier, but a little bit more simplified, right? Like how you're ranking, like the story and just everything like that. But man, for what they did, this game is incredible. The last thing we actually got to something like this was like Deception in Mortal Kombat, or like Shaolin Monks in Mortal Kombat, kind of. But this by far, like it just takes fighting games to a new level. I wish fighting games can always implement this variation now versus like how MK1 does Invasion. So Street Fighter 6 is the GOAT for that. Also, Street Fighter 6 just makes it the GOAT in totality because of the modern controls and this world tour. One, the modern controls did help out with newer players or players that haven't played these games in forever, since like 90s and stuff. Like myself, play this game and ease our way and then eventually graduate from it. And it also helped out with kind of Mortal Kombat 1 with all like the easy fatalities, brutality stuff. And Mortal Kombat is kind of a foundational game, and it kind of helped them kind of take some risk and bringing back easier combos with cameos if you know how to really utilize that segue instead of MK11. And then Tekken 8. Street Fighter 6 utilized modern controls and they walked so Tekken 8 could run. Tekken 8 brings a full-on bred special style that elevates your game that if you don't know how to play at all. And it did help out a lot of casual beginners, and I'm sure a lot of people are still using it in the earlier ranks, and that's a good thing. So yeah, that's this Street Fighter 6 has now helped a new generation of fighting games from just building an extensive world tour mode that offers an open world format with fighting and kind of like a Pokemon RPG essence, and a mini hack and slash, but a fighting version of it. Like all those games just were kind of shooken up, and they just made this melting pot of a format, which was the World Tour. And it was by far one of the coolest things I've ever experienced in my life. And I met amazing people across my community. It helped me create fighting game content. It helped me like just really stream every day. It made me laugh. The music was incredible. The leveling up was so fun. Creating the customization, all of that for this to still probably be like something that they still kind of held back on a little bit, because at the end of the day, what makes the money of Street Fighter 6 is the actual esports and just being a classic fighting game. And I can't really thank them enough for this. And a 1-year anniversary is well deserved. And it's so cool that this game is still elite. I know how people felt about Street Fighter 5 is the way kind of people feel about Mortal Kombat 1 right now, in terms of like it takes a long time for this installment to get better. Street Fighter 6 off the rip was just something that people really, really loved, including myself. I eventually went into rank, took out the modern controls, got into Diamond Platinum. My PC Platinum, I think. And then I think in console I was Diamond. I had two different variations because I had bought it twice because I wanted to do the World Tour on the go also, because I did find out that World Tour was an offline mode, which makes it even cooler. You can do your arcade if you're offline, especially if you're like me. I traveled a lot, so I'd play the arcade offline, and then I played like a World Tour offline also with no actual internet around me except my Steam Deck. So I really appreciate that more. What Street Fighter 6 means to me is always something that I'll never forget. Like I was moving homes, I was moving careers. I quit my job. I went back to full-time content creating, and then I went back to a career, and then it was just so much that was going on, because that was right after COVID had happened. And I was looking for something to really get like going once again. And within my first year of moving, I didn't really play any fighting games. And so the next year when I finally settled in my new home, 100%, I was like, man, I really want to start gaming and streaming again, but what can bring me back? What can be an exclusive come back to gaming that can keep me simplified and grounded and invested? And Street Fighter 6 did that, and that brought me to fighting games. And then we got the three-headed monster. We got the Mount Rushmore of fighting games all back to back to back. So right after Street Fighter 6 happened, sadly I did move on a lot more into Mortal Kombat 1 because I was grinding that game. And then when Mortal Kombat 1 happened, and then Tekken 8 came right around the corner, all within less than a year span, these 3 games released. So it's to this day, they're all still fairly new and relevant. And that's the blessing of fighting games and legacy players fighting games. Because once you learn these, now you can play multitudes of these games for multiple years. They continuously at least have a 4-year span in minimal. Tekken 7 had like 7 or 8 years, right? And then I know Tekken 8 is going to be the same way. And Street Fighter 6 is already on its year. So I'm assuming like 4 to 5 years also, like Mortal Kombat. So Man, what a cool way it has been, and what Street Fighter 6 has done the whole time. At least for me personally, makes it that much better. But I know for the fighting game community and those that stuck it out through Street Fighter 5, I know are loving this, and it's well deserved. They're closing out so many of these competitions now, everything in esports, and their prizes are higher now. What they offer, the extensive coaching, and all these rushes and these drives and the modern controls and the world tour, the content and the Akuma release. I didn't even mention that, right? There was a recent Akuma release too. Everything's just cool with Street Fighter 6, man. But y'all let me know what's up. Are you excited for Street Fighter 6 and the future of it? Because they just had their recent big patch, and I'm sure they're going to bring more. Peace.